This is Mike Wallace with another television portrait in our gallery of colorful people. Back in 1957, a philosophical novel launched what has become virtually a philosophical movement, both in the United States and in Europe. The novel, Atlas Shrugged. Its author, Ayn Rand. Ayn Rand's philosophy, called Objectivism, is creating excitement among intellectuals, businessmen, university students. And this is especially significant because Miss Rand's philosophy challenges most of the dominant intellectual, moral, and political beliefs of our time. And we'll find out why it does in just 1 minute. And now to our story with Ayn Rand, philosopher and author of The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. Miss Rand, I think you'll agree that everyone seems to feel that we live in an age of crisis. Moral crisis, political crisis, and everyone spends his time analyzing it and talking about it and trying to find answers to it. Now, as a philosopher, how would you evaluate what our leadership in various areas, what our leadership is doing and saying about this age of crisis? First, our intellectual leaders, so-called.
I would say that our intellectual leaders are evading and temporizing, that they have lost all directions. They have lost their convictions, and their sole principle left to them now is to please not take a stand on anything. Therefore, they are actually what I would call intellectually bankrupt.
In what sense? Would you please detail what you mean when you say that they're leading us no place and that they are...
In the sense that you observe everybody today is predicting disaster, doom, nuclear destruction, all kinds of horrors, and nobody is offering a solution. Nobody is talking in principles. Nobody has an organized, systematic, philosophical viewpoint. Nobody knows where we should go because nobody wishes to face moral issues.
And by moral issues, what do you mean?
Issues of right or wrong. Morality is the system that determines men's values and actions. And it is precisely moral issues that the intellectuals are opposed to. This is what they are evading and do not want to face.
Is it that the world has become so complex, so difficult, so overwhelming that we do not know right from wrong, good from bad? The reason, let me recall for you, a couple of years ago, President Eisenhower had recalled that he had had an argument with Soviet Marshal Zhukov. And Zhukov said to Eisenhower, "You in America tell a person that he can do as he pleases. Everything that is selfish in man, you appeal to. But we in the Soviet Union, we tell him that he must sacrifice for the state." And our president admitted later that he'd had a very tough time trying to defend our position. He said, "You run up against arguments sometimes that leave you breathless." Now, could it be that the world has become so involved, so various, that it's almost impossible for our leaders to say what is right or wrong?
Yes, if they cling to the traditional morality, of which this incident is a very good illustration. You see, the traditional morality of all Western civilization has been the morality of altruism, which means the morality of self-sacrifice. In other words, the standard of what is good or right was considered to be sacrifice. Man was not permitted to have any selfish motive morally, but was supposed to be good only when he sacrifices himself to others. Now, Zhukov was speaking consistently. The real, practical, ultimate expression of that kind of morality is a communist dictatorship where no one has a right to a private life, to a private motive, or a private ambition, no private property. And everybody sacrifices to everybody else, and the result is only slavery and destruction. Now, on that altruist morality, Eisenhower could not defend America, because altruism is incompatible with freedom, with capitalism, with the American way of life.
Altruism is incompatible with freedom?
Totally incompatible.
And incompatible with the American way of life?
Yes.
Would you explain what you mean?
Well, the American way of life fundamentally was based on the concept of man's right to exist for his own sake. Every man's right. so that nobody sacrifices himself to others, nor others to himself. When the Bill of Rights tells you, rather the Declaration of Independence, that you have the fundamental right to the pursuit of your own happiness, this is incompatible with altruism, which tells you that it is immoral to pursue your own happiness. You must sacrifice your happiness or any value for the sake of others. Now,
specify where do you get this idea about this being our current morality, that you must sacrifice yourself for others?
If you mean politically today, it is implied in every bit of social legislation which sacrifices some groups to other groups, which takes the money of some people to give it to other people. Every piece of legislation which attempts to distribute products and values, every piece that coerces people, specifically economically, is based, for its justification, is based morally on the idea that man must sacrifice himself to others. This is why Zhukov was right if altruism is the moral standard. And here I want to stress that this is the disgraceful incident of current history. The president of the greatest, best, and freest country on earth could not find a moral justification against the bloodiest dictatorship in history. The moral to learn from it is that we must renounce the morality of altruism. And we must announce to the world proudly that ours is not a morality of sacrifice, but of justice.
Where did this morality of sacrifice come from in our country?
It came from prehistorical times. It runs through the whole tradition of Western civilization in one way or another. Specifically, religions are the carriers of it. Morality has predominantly built the monopoly of religion, and in one form or another, with various degrees, all religions advocate the morality of self-sacrifice.
And for that reason, you think that religion, all organized religion, is wrong, is off base?
Not for that reason only. The reason is deeper. The reason is mysticism. Religion is only one part of mysticism. I think it is wrong to believe in any form of unprovable, non-rational knowledge. Any form of philosophy or religion that comes out against man's mind, against a rational form of perception, is wrong and destructive because it causes man to act against reality or to hold beliefs which contradict reality.
Man is only his mind. He is not a feeling, he is not a heart, he is not an emotion.
Oh, no.
Ideally, he is a mind.
Oh, no. He is all those things, except that you have to place first things first. His mind, what he thinks, or what he evades, will determine what kind of emotions he has. Ideally, a man's emotions are totally in harmony with his mind. There is no clash between them. But man does not act on his emotions. He acts on his mind, on his rational judgment, and his emotions follow. I mean, that is the proper pattern.
Well, if what you say is true, then, Miss Rand, what will be the effect nationally and internationally, eventually, of our continuance along this path, this morality of altruism?
Well, you see, it is an inner conflict which disarms us in any kind of issues. This is what prevents us from having a consistent policy or a consistent goal. Observe nationally. What is the general atmosphere of today? Despair and boredom. People are anxious and desperate. They know that the world is in a bad shape, but all they are offered as solution is old, stale generalities which nobody believes anymore, and people have no sense of purpose or direction. They live range of the moment. They do not know what to expect of tomorrow. That's the general spiritual atmosphere nationally. As to internationally, we are losing the Cold War for that very reason. Observe how vacillating and temporizing our foreign policy is. We do not stand for anything specific. We're playing it range of the moment, pragmatically, while Russia is pursuing a very consistent course. And the only way we could fight Russia intellectually is on the moral ground, namely by announcing proudly that we are right, our system is right, and our purposes are right. Instead of that, we apologize for ourselves. Russia's best and only weapon is the morality of altruism. So long as we keep apologizing for ourselves, we naturally lose prestige, lose confidence, and ourselves do not know what to do because we have no long-range goal. We can't have.
But, Miss Rand, I know that you abhor communism.
I certainly do.
But don't the Russians seem to have an idea of where they are going? Certainly, I suppose you could call them mystics, but they are also scientific materialists, or so they call themselves. They seem to have a point of view. They know where they are going. They will use almost any device to achieve what they are after.
Yes.
They will not admit to motives of altruism, certainly in their dealings with the opposite camp.
But that is the whole point. They are consistently carrying out the morality of altruism in the only way which it can be practiced consistently. They are swallowing the whole world by announcing that it is done for the downtrodden, for the poor, for the good of the people, and observe that they will always move that millennium or that ideal a few generations ahead. They always take over countries, promise them everything, and then ask them to wait for the next generation or the next 5-year plan or the next 1,000 years. On that morality and on the communist system, nothing but destruction and enslavement can be achieved. And that is precisely what they are achieving. Observe, they're not achieving any kind of public good or general welfare. They are achieving war and destruction and terror. That's all they can achieve. But inasmuch as they can claim morality to be on their side, the rest of the world is morally disarmed against them. So long as they say we are unselfish and the rest of you are selfish, they're going to win because men are motivated by morality, consciously or unconsciously. We will not begin to win until we tell them you are bloody monsters in fact and in morality. We, the United States of America, is the highest and noblest country on earth because ours is the morality of justice and life. We should stop allowing them or anyone to call us vulgar materialists nationally. We are a country of freedom.
We are.
Or
should be.
were.
Or were. Tell me this. What you're saying, in a sense, is a plague on both your houses. The current leadership in the United States or in the West, the current leadership in the Soviet Union or in the East.
That's right.
Is there any people upon the face of the earth which understands itself properly and is treating itself properly with a view to
as a nation,
survival?
As a nation, no, I couldn't say that. But the nearest to it would be America because the morality that I'm advocating was always the implicit morality here. It was not stated, it was not identified, it was not acknowledged, and yet the American system was functioning by implication on the morality of individual rights, individual freedom, individual happiness. And look at the results. Look at the tremendous advantages and progress that America has achieved in every field of activity, achieved only to the extent to which it was free.
Where did we get off the track, in your view? Who led us down the garden path? When did it happen? How did it happen?
Things like that never happen on a certain date. It happened gradually. It happened by undermining and by default, not by anyone's conscious plan, by the implications of the morality of altruism. From the first regulations that were imposed on this country, the freedom and the progress were beginning to be hampered.
Well, then specifically, what do you have in mind? What does your philosophy, which is called objectivism, what does it postulate for a healthy and productive life?
A total and complete laissez-faire capitalism. That is a system of economics where the government has no control over production or trade. The separation of state and economics in the same way that we have the separation of church and state, where the government serves only as a policeman or an umpire, a protector of men's rights, specifically a protector of men from violence and nothing more, where the government does not undertake to be the ruler and the benefactor of every group of people.
In what sense, then, does this differ from Barry Goldwater or William Buckley or Stiles Bridges' conservatism?
Well, Goldwater, to my knowledge, is the one bright hope on the political scene today. I say to my knowledge because I do not know everything that he has done But he has a book coming out, which I'm very anxious to read in order to know more fully what he stands for. So far, it seems that he does stand for a real laissez-faire capitalism. As to the others you mentioned, well, Stiles-Bridges stands more or less for a mixed economy. In other words, for fewer controls, but still controls. Now, a mixed economy cannot exist for long. If the controls are not repealed, they necessarily will lead to more controls, and that is what has been happening. As to Buckley, I do not consider him a defender of capitalism at all.
Why not?
Because by his public statements, he does not consider capitalism important. What he considers important is religion. And he defends capitalism on the ground of religion. If you do that, you simply imply that there is no rational grounds to defend capitalism. That we could not in reason say why capitalism is the best and the most moral system, and therefore you will have some monster like Khrushchev come here and tell you that he is the representative of reason and science. That prehistorical brute is going to claim the sanction of reason because men like Buckley has opened the way for him. They have told him that reason is not on their side.
Miss Rand, I think that you will agree. We've listened now for 15 or 20 minutes to your catalog of evils in liberalism. Wasn't liberalism truly a reaction against the kind of conservatism that in the past led to monopolies and depressions and mass unemployment? Didn't uncontrolled capitalism, laissez-faire uncontrolled capitalism, lead to many of the economic evils of the past, and therefore we decided that we had to help support ourselves, that we had to take care of ourselves? What you're asking us to do, it seems to me, is to run the risk of uncontrolled capitalism once again. Now, in just a minute, I'd like to come on back and have you answer that, if you will. And we'll hear more from Ayn Rand in just a moment. Now back to our story with novelist-philosopher Ayn Rand. Miss Rand, will you not agree that it was uncontrolled laissez-faire capitalism that led to many of the economic evils of the past?
Now, that is a very important question. No, most emphatically not. But what is true is that people have been told that. The great tragedy there, historically, intellectually, is that people have never realized, and intellectuals have never observed, nor offered it to the public, the fact that all the evils for which capitalism is blamed were due not to unrestricted free trade, but to government interference into trade. Remember that we never had full laissez-faire capitalism. From the start, there were certain restrictions, there were certain government interferences and controls over the economy, and it is these controls that grew and ultimately brought us to today where we are almost not free. We're mixed, but the mixture is constantly going more and more towards controls.
It was the government controls of the 1920s that led to the Depression of the 30s?
Almost certainly, if you want me to be specific. It is the Federal Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve System, which by manipulation of credit caused what is called popularly overproduction and the crash. That economists will tell you, and there is, the evidence is available. It is government controls that throw an economy out of kilter, and therefore it crashes, causing unemployment, causing financial losses. Observe that all through the 19th century, there have been periodic depressions, each longer and more severe than the preceding one. What was the other growing factor? Each time more and more controls were imposed, each depression served as justification for more controls, which made the recovery impossible and brought us, after a few years, to another depression. If you study the history of capitalism in detail, you will observe that such things as depression, mass unemployed, monopolies are possible only by government interference. In the case of monopolies, it's special subsidies, special franchises, or the closing of a field to competition by law. In free trade, men cannot achieve that kind of monopoly.
Miss Rand, as you understand it, why are human beings put upon this earth?
I don't believe that they're put upon this earth. I don't believe in any kind of supernatural power. Human beings are here on this earth. And what they're to do with their life is to be decided by their moral code, meaning by themselves. If you ask me what
You say human beings are on this earth. One day there was day and there were human beings, and that was it.
Now, not quite. You're now talking science. The question of the development of life on this planet is a very complex one. And the question of specifically on what day human beings appeared has never been answered.
Delete that. What is the purpose of our being here?
We set our purpose. When you speak of purpose, it is a moral issue. You should decide what is right, what to choose. All right, my morality, meaning a rational code of morality, will tell you that you should choose the development of your own mind and the achievement of your own happiness. And if you do that, you will profit others too, but that should never be your goal. You are not here to serve others, nor to sacrifice yourself. You should choose to be here to live your own life and to achieve the highest happiness possible to you.
And that is your religion, if you will.
I wouldn't call it religion. Philosophy. This is my morality. Religion means mysticism.
Who are the men in America or around the world, men or women, whom you most admire?
It's hard for me to name anyone today, but I'd rather name them of the past. Aristotle as a philosopher, Victor Hugo as a writer, Rachmaninoff as a musician, Frank Lloyd Wright as an architect, but you see, unfortunately, they're dead.
There's no one alive in the world today for whom you have, I gather you have infinite respect for yourself.
Oh, yes. That's known as self-esteem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But today...
But no other living human being?
There are people who I would say are good, but no one whom I would admire in the sense of a hero. Mm-hmm. No, there are no men of that stature today.
Why?
Part of it is due to the philosophy that is being preached. The predominant philosophy acts to discourage the development of men of great stature.
Then what is the end? That you must be an awful pessimist.
Oh, not at all. Ideas brought us here, and ideas can take it out. They can take us out. I'm the opposite of a pessimist. Why do you think I come out and defy 2,000 years or more of civilization? Because I know that if the right is on my side, if reason is on my side, I will win. The right ideas have always won.
Get rid of religion. Get rid of altruism. Get rid of feeling for your brother. Believe on yourself. And that is the salvation of us as individuals and of the world.
I wouldn't put it that way. I wouldn't advocate, for instance, get rid of religion by law or force. That would be totally improper. Religion is a private matter, and let people believe it if they want to. But if they want the right life, get rid of altruism. Get rid of mysticism, meaning of ever acting on anything irrational.
Ayn Rand, I thank you for coming and spending this very challenging half hour.
Thank you.
I'll be back in a moment with a footnote to this interview with Ayn Rand. Our politicians, religious leaders, and intellectuals all agree that we are living in an age of crisis. They give their answers. Ayn Rand gives her own. And certainly her answers are challenging and different from virtually anything we hear elsewhere. We thank Ayn Rand for adding her portrait to our gallery, one of the people other people are interested in. Mike Wallace, that's it for now.